So at the end here of Victor's remembrances to Robert Walton, we get this last scene where he shows up at the grave, the tombs of all those that he has loved. He has somehow been instrumental in the death of William, and in the death of Justine, and in the death of Clerval, and in the death of Elizabeth, and the death of his father. He's kind of a walking pariah. And he comes to the cemetery here where they're all buried. As night approached, I found myself at the entrance of the cemetery where William, Elizabeth, and my father reposed. I entered it and approached the tomb which marked their graves. And it's at this grave, at this tomb, that he has this sense of rage and of anger at all that's occurred before. The deep grief which this scene had at first excited quickly gave way to rage and despair. They were dead, and I lived. Their murderer also lived, and to destroy him I must drag out my weary existence. Again, we can read this as Victor and the creature are two separate entities in the novel. But we could also read it, there's a strong implication that the creature and Victor are one and the same. If they are separate entities, then they are certainly united together in rage and mutual animosity, bound together like Archbishop Ruggieri and Ugolino and Dante's great classic of the Inferno. If they are the same person, then as long as Victor is alive, the creature is alive. And so he has to kill himself in order to get rid of the creature. And he swears this great oath that he will stay alive in order to hunt down the creature, which in some ways is convenient, I suppose, that the killer, the murderer, the insane man vows, I will stay alive because I must find this creature that's out there, this demented thing that's out there. By the seared earth on which I kneel, by the shades that wander near me, by the deep and eternal grief that I feel, I swear, and by thee, O night, and the spirits that preside over thee, to pursue the demon who caused this misery, until he or I shall perish in mortal conflict. For this purpose I will preserve my life, to execute this dear revenge, while I again behold the sun, and tread the green herbage of earth, which otherwise should vanish from my eyes forever. And I call on you, spirits of the dead, and on you, wandering ministers of vengeance, to aid and conduct me in my work. Let the cursed and hellish monster drink deep of agony. Let him feel the despair that now torments me. So it's out of rage that he makes this terrible vow, this solemn invocation of the spirits of darkness and night. It's an invocation very similar to Lady Macbeth's invocation at the opening of Shakespeare's great play Macbeth, where she says, "Come, you spirits who attend on mortal thoughts, and unsex me here, and fill me from the toe to the crown full of direst cruelty." Here, Frankenstein is invoking those same dark spirits so that he can hunt down the creature and it can destroy it or cause it to feel the same misery that he feels. But at the same time, he has proclaimed frequently that he is like a damned creature. He is a hellish creature. So at the end of this story, Victor and the creature are both mutually engaged in animosity and rage and horror, but they're also mutually committed to a hellish sense. He even says, for instance, as if all hell surrounded me with mockery and laughter. So it's like hell, pandemonium. All the demons are surrounding him and mocking him in this hellish state of existence that he seems to reside in. And it's at that moment that he says he hears a laughter that was very familiar to him. The creature shows up. And the creature is very close to him when it shows up. The laughter died away when a well-known and abhorred voice, apparently close to my ear, addressed me in an audible whisper. "I am satisfied. Miserable wretch, you have determined to live, and I am satisfied." And again, the ambiguity, the intimation, for instance, that the creature and Victor are one is pretty strong here. The creature is right there in the graveyard where he is, and it's right next to him, whispering in his ear. Victor hears voices. So it's as though Victor is this crazy individual who has been the cause of the death of all these people around him. Well, the moon shines and shows the ghastly form of the creature, and the creature flees, and Victor pursues, and he goes all over the world searching for the creature. He goes to the Rhone. He goes down to the Blue Mediterranean. He goes across to the Black Sea. He goes up to Tartary and then to Russia. And finally, he gets a note from the creature, because the creature is leaving little notes, that says, meet me in the north, in the North Pole, in the frozen wastelands. And these notes are themselves kind of suspect. They're very long and prosaic notes that are being left on trees and the like by a creature that's being pursued. My reign is not yet over. These words were legible in one of these inscriptions. You live and my power is complete. Follow me. I seek the everlasting ices of the north, where you wilt feel the misery of cold and frost, to which I am impassive. You will find near this place, if you follow not too tardily, a dead hare. Eat and be refreshed. Come on, my enemy. We have yet to wrestle for our lives, but many hard and miserable hours must you endure until that period shall arrive. And so Victor is driven on by these notes that the creature leaves and little hints here and there he finds on rocks and stones. He goes and he talks to the peasants, and they seem to have seen this creature, and they are terrified by him. But again, there's an ambiguity that they're almost like saying what Victor wants to hear. And he is driven on by the memory of all these people that have died, as he says, during the day I was sustained and inspirited by the hope of night, for in sleep I saw my friends, my wife, and my beloved country. Again I saw the benevolent countenance of my father, heard the silver tones of my Elizabeth's voice, and beheld Clerval enjoying health and youth. Often when wearied by a toilsome march, I persuaded myself that I was dreaming until night should come, and that I should then enjoy reality in the arms of my dearest friends. At such moments vengeance that burned within me died in my heart, and I pursued my path towards the destruction of the demon more as a task enjoined by heaven, as a mechanical impulse of some power of which I was unconscious, than as the ardent desire of my soul. So now Victor conceives of himself as driven on by the power of heaven itself. He's doing the will of heaven. The spirits that infuse him with power to pursue this creature are heavenly spirits. He's doing the will of God. It really, again, takes on the dimensions of dementia. It is as though we're listening to the ravings of a madman. And at last he says, when he sees Walton's boat, it was like it was salvation for him. Several of my dogs died, and I myself was about to sink under the accumulation of distress when I saw your vessel riding at anchor and holding forth to me hopes of succor and life. I had no conception that vessels ever came so far north, and was astounded at the sight. So that Walton now has become sort of the salvation of this character of Victor Frankenstein. And Walton himself says that I admired this man. He was wonderful. Remember Walton, who at the beginning of the story is trapped in the ice of the north, has been desirous of a friend. And as he's trapped in the ice of the north and he's starving to death, and they're all beginning to go out of their minds from the isolation and the cold, Walton says, I desired a friend. And boom, there's Victor. And now Victor, who is this man that has told this tremendous story over the course of several weeks, is a man that Walton himself admires greatly. Now, Mary Shelley has created this frame within a frame, remember, and so it gives some verisimilitude to the story, but it also gives a possibility that the entire story of Victor Frankenstein and the creature has been made up by Walton.